Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Roland Pablo, senior specialist in the West Yale area. And I've been at Treehouse almost 9 years, 10 if you count interning. And I'm joined by fellow senior ed specialist Reginald Rogers Jr. And he's been working in the Federal Way area for, it'll be 4 years next week, right?
Yeah, 4 years.
The anniversary, my guy.
Thank you.
Before we get started, we wanted to take time to pay our respects and have silence for George Floyd, who was murdered by police officers this past Monday.
Yeah, we want to make sure we acknowledge him and the many deaths of African Americans by police officers. We ask that you join us for a few moments of silence and what you can do to stop these senseless acts of violence and hold those who are responsible for these deaths accountable.
Thank you. All right, ready to get started, Rich?
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat for us.
All right, so a little background on me and Reggie's relationship. So we've been friends since his freshman year in high school. We met during a summer league, summer league basketball team, and that was like more than 15 years ago, man.
Yeah, I was since I was 14 years old. I'm 31 now.
It's crazy. So the first class, just real quick, Reg, the first class that I had with you, I remember the teacher saw your backpack. Do you remember this? And it was just so messy. The teacher, it was like the second day of class. He signed a piece of paper. The teacher put his signature on it, gave it to Reggie, said, "Hey, you give this back to me at the end of the semester with no folds or rips in it. I'll give you an A." The next day, fat crease, dead center. And now he has a bachelor's degree. So, you know, progress.
Yeah, I'm going to say progress. I tried to tell the teacher he was rich. Rich.
But we've always talked about working together, especially after high school. And our first job together was after school programs at Hamilton International Middle School.
Yeah, when you were like demolishing kids with dodgeballs.
I wasn't the only one. You were there too.
We were a dynamic team.
Absolutely. Still are.
Nobody wants to see us in dodgeball.
Nah,
Cornhole.
Or that.
No.
Oh, now cornhole.
You know who you are.
Yeah. All right. So, Reg, Treehouse. Why do you work at Treehouse?
Why do I work at Treehouse? Well, for me, like you said, a lot of it goes back to since we were younger, we wanted to work together. Like, you've always been one of my closest friends. 14, 50 years, a long time ago. Say when we were working together as like, I think 19-year-olds, I was like, man, this is really cool. And we've always been very passionate about, the youth in our community with you in West Seattle and me growing up in Skyway. I was just like, yo, this is something really cool. So when you got on at Treehouse, started working there, I remember us just having a conversation, you telling me to apply. And it was just something that I saw that you were really passionate about. And I was like, yo, this is something I think I could really get myself into, So when I did apply and finally got the job in Federal Way, I was just elated. I was just so ecstatic, like, to be working here in this community. I actually live here now, so it's really cool. I enjoy, like, the work I do, helping youth. Just doing my best to, like, be there for the students, So Treehouse is, like, a wonderful opportunity for me to give back and be the person I needed when I was younger. So that's my biggest thing. But what about yourself?
So we have two close friends that we went to high school together with that grew up in the system. One of whom was one of my best friends, used to stay with my family for weeks at a time. So I was able to see the uncertainty there was from day to day. The feeling of being powerless sometimes, not having say in what happens in your own life, right? And that's not something that he chose to do. It wasn't his fault. This was all forced upon him. He didn't ask for it, right? So I was able to see that, and I wanted to affect it in some way. And I also saw what happened when he achieved permanency. All of his basic needs met, knew where his meals were coming from every day, knew where he was going to sleep every night. And to see the mental, emotional, and even physical growth that happens when everything's being met. He had a growth spurt, you know what I'm saying? Like it really has a huge effect. So you know, I grew up in that. I saw that, and I wanted to be a part of the solution. And I'm grateful that Treehouse was able to give me an opportunity to do that. So we are education specialists. But what does that mean day to day? How do we work with youth, and what are our goals?
You go first, or you want to go first?
I could take this one first. So what I usually do, I usually go into like our model, right? So the check and connect, we meet with students weekly, check their grades, attendance, behaviors, solve any problems that might come up out of that. And we partner that with student-centered planning, which is the goal setting driven by the students that we work with. A lot of times in life, adults are telling them, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to do, this is where you need to go. So I like to put the students in a position of power as often as I can, and that's an opportunity to do that. But deeper than that, while we're doing the goal setting and check and connect, I'm helping these students and families navigate systems that exhibit institutional racism. Right? The foster care, educational system, criminal justice system, et cetera, are disproportionately represented by our Black, Indigenous, and students of color. So having gone through the Seattle School District where I work, and the schools that I work in are the schools that I went to, I know people in those spaces, and I can help navigate those. All while understanding that the youth that we work with have experienced some and are still experiencing some traumatizing things. And that trauma can come out in a lot of different ways, including lashing out at us, right? But that's something that we don't take personally. It's, if we have a bad day, you go in on me, that's great. Guess what? I'll be back next week. We could try again. So just trying to provide that consistency in that, showing you're not going to scare me away. You're not going to push me away. I'll be here to support you in any way that I can.
No, I would say pretty much the same thing. I agree with you. Like, I think like the biggest role that we play as specialists is, like you said, consistency. Always being there for our youth. You know, I've told you this before. Like, the way I look at it is kind of like, you know, again, being a champion for the youth. You know, being a voice for them when they feel like their voice isn't being heard. Because unfortunately, like the youth that we work with, a lot of times they have like a ton of people that they're working with, and they all don't always feel like they can express how they're truly feeling. So I know, be like, hey, like if you feel like you're not being heard by these adults, like let me know, and I'll speak on your behalf. Because I kind of see it more, you know, just like as a partnership. You know, like I tell people all the time, like even my pitch to when I'm working with youth and stuff, like when we first meet, I'll be like, hey, you know, we work together. You know, like, and I always tell people that, hey, like I'm a huge Marvel fan, even though I can't think of anybody off the top. But I say, like, instead of using that, just say Batman and Robin, because it's simpler for everyone who knows Batman and Robin. Dynamic duo. You know, obviously I'm Batman because I'm older, you know, sturdier in life. I'm about to say my funding is much higher than theirs most times.
You got a car?
Yeah, I have a car. They're not. I wear darker colors. So.
Yeah. See, you do the partnership. A lot of times when I start out, I give them like, I'm your personal assistant. Let me know what you need. I'll go get it.
Oh.
I work up towards a partner.
So you start off as Alfred.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, you're more like Jeffrey.
Let me know what you need, Batman, and I'm here to help.
You like Master Will.
Yeah. Exactly. Just a little bit for the Facebook Live folks. If you do have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll try our best to answer those if you have them.
Please definitely let us know.
But to switch gears a little bit, so that was how we did our job, right? But COVID-19, the school shutdowns and stuff, that's changed the way we work with students. Could you speak a little bit to that? And then I'll go to you.
Yeah, definitely. I'll say. I think with the COVID-19 has really made our jobs really difficult because we spend like so much time with like physically like meeting with them at the schools and building those relationships. I think it's just more difficult to do that over with a phone call or a text or even a Zoom right now. Like this is like the type of meeting that we would be having in person. Um, and during that time, like I said, it's just been really difficult. Um, like just thinking about the youth and stuff like that with their like I know it's difficult for me as an adult to be in the house all day, so I can only like and like we have money, like we could go like just order video games and stuff like that. But them, like I just always think about stuff like that, and it just like it's a terrible feeling right now because like we have so many students that we're getting ready to graduate,
and that not being able to see them in person has been huge for me too.
Oh yeah,
we're just like in a room with a student in the school on their territory. I can read body language. We can sit in silence until they're comfortable and ready to talk. It's kind of hard to do that over text and phone calls and stuff. So
yeah, and it's like they don't always want to like call or to like talk to us on the like I don't even like really talking on the phone like that. So it's like
think of when we were in high school. Like would we want to like check in with people? You know what I'm saying? Like weekly.
I don't think we ever talked on the phone in high school.
No, because I saw it. Like we seen each other every day.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
like, would you want to check in with an adult weekly? Like, so I always take those things into context because, especially the first couple weeks, I was checking in with students and information that we were getting was changing every day from the district, from the state. Rightfully so, we were getting new information, so things were changing. So students, I think they told them like treat this like extra long spring break. So I would text students and I'd be left on red often the first few weeks, like not hitting me back. So what I did, I just went heavy into contacting adults that were on the students team. So caregivers, social workers, teachers, etc., just to try to make sure they have all those basic needs. Because they got to figure out how to feed these students 3 meals a day when before it was just one because they got breakfast and lunch at school.
Right.
So making sure they have enough money to buy food and have the resources to what they need. Another big one was technology, going to pick up laptops or ordering laptops through Treehouse. Those were the things that I was doing heavy in the first few weeks.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way where it's just like I thought we were going to go back to school. So at first I wasn't like too worried about, but as information was being sent out more and more, it started to be like, oh, like we might not be going back to school. And when it finally came up that we weren't going to be going back, a lot of my main things was just like texting or calling students and just reaching out, be like, hey, is there anything you need? Not per se like as far as schoolwork, but just like food, like letting them know what resources were in their area. Like you said, technology is unfortunate that this happened, and we know no one could have saw this coming and be prepared for it. But like a lot of the teachers have been sending out stuff online, and those students who don't have like Wi-Fi or like laptops or tablets or anything like that, it just caught them really off guard. So I think that was like the major thing is just making sure like definitely we want to make sure their grades are on point, but also just making sure like they're physically and mentally like okay, that's like the biggest thing for me.
Main thing, right? And then you mentioned grades too, like the grading policies were changing from district to district today. So trying to figure out and relay that to the families, like, so most of my schools, it's either an A or an incomplete. And I'm talking to teachers weekly, and a lot of them are just very understanding. They understand like this is crazy time and the students that we work with are going through some things. So they've been really understanding, which is amazing. But yeah, just relaying like, okay, you got to do A, B, or C, log into Schoology, and then email your teacher, you'll be able to get your grades. And otherwise, like, maybe they're not having contact with the schools. And I'm glad that we were there to able kind of make sure they have the information that they need. So we have a Facebook question for people who have the opportunity to interact directly with these young people. Is there anything you would like us to know about them? The resilience is crazy. The being able to bounce back, being able to compartmentalize and focus on school when you have so many things going on. We talk about basic needs, right? I think was it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? If you're not getting that base level of food, sleep, love, like all those things taken care of, how are we focusing on schoolwork or retaking that math test? But a lot of our students find a way to do it, and that's what drives me in my work every day. Seeing what they do and just trying to help any way I can.
Yeah, to piggyback off what you were saying, Roland. Like my students are like you said, some really strong young men. I would say just going out there, like I think I was in more of a panic than they were when like this first happened.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, like a lot of them have been able to focus and just like the communication that we have been able to have is just like discussing like what you need to do, not only at school as in life. Like I have students who are thinking about doing trades, like trying to figure out like what they could do online to get certificates and stuff like that, so that when things do open back up, they can have new jobs and stuff like that. And like I tell you right now, like if at their age, that would be the furthest thing on my mind at this point right now. We'd be out playing basketball right now.
Yeah.
That'd be like the last thing, like playing Pokemon cards, like that, like So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the resilience and just the mindset of these young men and women, and just like make it so much fun. These young people to work with and stuff like that. You really respect it, and like makes it way easier to come to work.
What's next, Rich?
I was say, you want to read this question?
Which one?
Okay, we got from Justin on Facebook. With the pandemic and the unfortunate events that have resulted in deaths of Black men, are you guys opening up dialogue as men of color to young women? Oh, sorry, as men of color to young men of color, and discussing how we continue to strive for educational success with so much stress on their backs?
Right. So that just speaks to an added stress on their backs to growing up in the foster care system, right? These are things that I've talked about with my students since I started the job, because I think there are not a lot of people that look like us in this role, and I make sure to take advantage of that 100%. And I know being a man of color, but I'm also not Black, and I understand that colorism is a real thing, and your experiences, Reggie, are different than my experiences. And letting students know that, look, I don't encounter the same thing as you. Let my young Black students know I don't encounter the same things you do, and I won't. But I'm here to try to help you navigate that, right, and connect you to people that can help you and look out for you. But yeah, man, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I would say to that, agree. Like when I first started working the job, with all of my students, it's always a conversation. Like especially not only just with like young Black males that I work with, but Black women as well, and just all the people of color. Understanding that there are certain things that you have to deal with as a man of color. You know what I'm saying? Just having those conversations. I really think like for just speaking on Black people, I feel like we're very like tribe oriented. Like we learn as a people. Like you can ask anybody in Seattle, they could say that we cousins. Like that's my family. Like I've been raised by the city and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of stuff that we're being taught or learned has to be passed down to us. So me as a Black man, working with those other youth, I'm gonna explain to them like this is how we do things. This is how we have to interact with stuff like that. Like one of my memories ever was teaching one of my students how to like put a do-rag on. Yeah, because my guy was out there with the cape out,
with the tail out.
Yeah, he has a flap out, and I was like, "Nah, that's not what we don't do." That I was like, "You gotta roll that in."
You had your times with tail out too, so
I don't remember.
I got pics.
I would love to see those pics. I was like, speaking of pics, I was like, I got pictures. If you wanna show pictures.
All right, we'll hold off on that. But yeah, like the students that we worked with, that could have been us, right? Like I worked at schools that I went to, like we walked down to Westwood often before practice. We would just be out and about doing ridiculous things that teenagers do. You know what I'm saying? So
hold on. I was about to say, for you guys who don't know, so one time Roland and our mutual friend, he set up booby traps in our locker room.
I said doing ridiculous things.
I don't think, they weren't even good traps. Like all they did was like open up boxes, and as we chased them, they would knock the boxes down.
They work better in theory. Watch Tom and Jerry.
Dude, piss poor planning. No effort put into that.
No effort. All right. So next we got graduation. It's a big milestone for high schoolers. How are you working with your graduating seniors to celebrate what they've accomplished? It's a big thing.
Like I was saying earlier, it was just like I got 3 seniors this year who are graduating. 2 of them I've been working with like for 4 years. So this is like my actual first cohort of students that I worked with from their freshman to senior year, you know. Mm-hmm. Really, really excited to be going to graduation. Yeah,
hey, man. That freshman to senior year, that hits different.
It makes you feel old.
Yeah, that's
it makes you feel really old. So I was like, man, you know, like seeing them and like how much they've grown in like that time. So I was super excited to see them graduate and stuff like that. You know, walk across that stage, just that they're not having the opportunity to. It's really frustrating, you know, not only for me but for them, of course, you know, and their families and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm letting them guys know, you know, as soon as things open back up, I'm always down to celebrate. You know, like you guys should be promoted and celebrated. And just because this pandemic happened doesn't mean like, you know, your graduation is any less than anyone else's, you know.
Right.
And I've been telling them, you know, as soon as things open, like Red Robin, yeah, we're going to Red Robin, you know.
Fine establishment.
The most magical place on earth.
Fries on me, man.
Yeah, free and water. I love that place.
Sauces too.
Bro, I love that's a whiskey real barbecue chicken at the. We should see if we can get sponsored.
Hey, we could do this all day. We can talk about Red Robin all day.
Easily, I love that place so much.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, I don't have any seniors this year, high school seniors this year, and that's rare for me. But there is a student that I've been working with since their sophomore year in high school, and this was pre-launch success. So me and them kind of just stayed in touch post high school, followed them through Bellevue College, and then eventually they got into SU and got the Fostering Scholarship, which is amazing. And this is just one of the most resilient, intelligent people I've encountered, work life or not. And they're graduating with a bachelor's in social work this year, which is a huge deal.
So that's so dope.
They were hesitant on one the graduation ceremony, so they're not really tripping off this, but same thing, I let them know we're going to celebrate you one way or another. I'm excited for them to become a peer, you know, from student to a peer. That's like, you talk about feeling old.
That's crazy. I'm about to say, you're going to, what do you call it? Do like the Scottie Pippen with like the shoe and having the point, like, come work here?
yeah, exactly. That's been in the works for a minute. But yeah, you know, the relationship that we've been able to hold that longevity, you know, my daughter sees them as family. We go to lunch together. We did a conference in LA, and I was able to, you know, bring them with me to speak at. And when they took a field trip in high school, like it's to the point where they're bringing me souvenirs when they come back from field trip and stuff. So they got me this nice porcelain tea set, teacups. Like it's dope.
Yeah, I would say, I remember you was telling me, I was like, you know, because your students are a lot older and stuff than mine, because I was like, I don't really get like gifts like that, you know, like when, you know, I was like, I told you I got the seashell, you know.
Got the seashells. And then, yeah, like I said, if we judge who's better at specialists on what the type of gifts we get, I'm above you by a lot.
Well, I would say I
A
don't really know
lot.
about that. I would say I don't know. I would say see, because like I said, you got students who are like you got like grown students now. You know, they're adults. You know,
That's what happens when you
you
9
got
years
peers.
in, man. That's what
Yeah.
happens.
10 years is like a decade. It's like you
Decade.
holding it down for 10. That's a long time to be. You know, like I said, mine are young though, so they don't have money and stuff like that. You know, they haven't started
Yeah.
working their adult job. Like none of my students, like we haven't gone on a trip together.
Yeah. If that counts, I guess.
It does, it definitely.
Whatever
Like I
you
would say, if you're a 1A, I'm definitely like 1A.1.
one.
Yeah, I'm up there.
All right. What's next, Reg?
We got another question. What's that? I read the last one.
All right. Youth development work can be very draining emotionally, mentally, and physically. What are some self-care tactics that you guys are using to ensure that you're able to present the best version of yourself to your youth and organization? You want me to take that one first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Big self-care things for me. Hanging out with my little girl. She'll be 2 next month. We take a lot of walks to the park. She's trying to form words, which is always fun for me. Take my dog out for walks. Physical activity is big for me. With things kind of getting shut down, luckily, you know, it's been nice out recently, so we've been able to just kind of take walks, and we have a decent sized backyard that we go hang out in. So that's been huge for me. And also sometimes I like to just zone out on Netflix. I've already watched Avatar: The Last Airbender twice. It's amazing.
Twice?
It's amazing. Yeah. You gotta learn, man. You gotta learn.
I feel like they just put it up though.
Oh, they did.
I was say, and so also I was say when Avatar's not new, you guys. Last Airbender, it came when like we were in high school. I remember the last episode was on. I want to say like on your 18th birthday party. Do you remember that, or around that time?
Yeah.
The reason why I always remember this is so important is because I kid you not, this man at his birthday had chocolate cake with chocolate ice cream and chocolate milk.
I don't hear a problem with what you're saying. I don't see an issue.
I was like, oh my god.
What about you? What do you do for self-care?
For self-care, like you said, like a lot of time like working out, like going to the track or stadium and stuff like that, you know, walking around. I've always been someone who really likes to walk. So being able to walk in my area, like I'll go outside and walk for like an hour, chilling, like listen to music or listen to like YouTube videos. My sister, you know, she just had a baby, my niece Zuri, so we be hanging out a lot.
Zuzu.
Yeah, Zuzu.
Yeah.
Yeah, babe. Like we be spending a whole bunch of time together, and I'm trying to teach her like, so how you been having Junie watch like Avatar? I made her watch. I didn't make her; she chose. With me. We watched the whole Infinity War saga. You know, from Marvel, because like that's like my favorite thing. So I was teaching her how to like, watch that stuff, you know, and just like get her at a young age. Besides that, in the music, I've been trying to listen to like albums and catch up. So whenever people have music, I tell them just like send it my way.
Yeah. And another thing I like to do is I have these discussions with the students we work with too. You're right. Like self-care isn't just for us. Like, what are you doing to take care of yourself in these times? So appreciate that question.
Oh wait, I was say, man, we forgot. I was say we also like I said, we were real friends in real life. Like they didn't just put us on here together. You and me, we be doing like the challenges with each other.
That's been helping out. So, like I was looking for motivation and have that like accountability partner. Like that really pushed me. So I appreciate you starting that.
Yeah, well, I say it's challenge day.
Yeah, that's it's been super. And even when you don't challenge, I'm out there hitting it just so you know. So we'll get back.
I was like, so what do you call it? It was actually your turn to send a challenge.
I
feel like it was, and I just been waiting.
We'll go hard on Monday. We'll go hard on Monday.
We're back at it Monday.
Starting back up. Yep.
We're back at it.
Well, we appreciate you all tuning in to listen. So the next Facebook Live will be Let's see. There's a graduation spotlight pitch June 17th. This isn't a Facebook Live, I don't think. This is just something we got going on. June 17th, 4:30 to 5:30. Two of our Champions Luncheon speakers will be sharing their stories and paths to high school graduation. Also, say again? June 3rd at noon. So Janelle, teacher of mine, put together like a master list of resources I was able to send out to everybody. Shout out Janelle. She's gonna have grad success youth on, a recent graduate, Mackenzie, and they'll be talking about Mackenzie's path to college and receiving the Galler scholarship and all that stuff. And that's June 3rd at noon.
Yeah, I would say thank you guys for hanging out with us during this time. Since we're doing shout outs, shout out South 2.
All right, Central. Hey, Central, we out here.
I was going to say squash. Yeah.
I think that's all we got. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate it.
For sure.